on the air, Bob.
There we are.
I pushed the button.
I think we're getting better at this. It's only 9 buttons we have to push now.
Yeah. Well, it's a slow process.
And that's quite all right. We're elderly. We shouldn't be moving fast anyway.
What do you mean we? What do you mean
what was
elderly?
The royal we.
No, that was the elderly part. Was
that's true.
I think we're mature. You're like a good wine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like the Facebook meme says, my mind thinks that I can do that, and my body says, are you nuts?
Yeah, and of course, wine, you have to be careful. It could turn to vinegar.
Well, I'm a very, very big connoisseur of wine. I know the difference between red and white.
That says a lot. I am impressed.
Well, as I should be.
So, to our dear listeners, readers, viewers on YouTube and Rumble and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, etc., welcome to the BORDERPOL Journal episode. Who cares? But year 4 anyway. But and yes.
Well, while we're thinking about that, don't forget to hit the like buttons and subscribe, because without that, we could go the way of the dodo bird or the dinosaur.
Correct. Yes, it's important to have the analytics show up. We're still experiencing the throttling on the one platform,
which shall remain
nameless. But the other ones apparently are not so much of a problem. And by the way, you can always come and read some of our other stuff or the transcripts on substack.com. If you wish, just look up BORDERPOL at substack.com and you can subscribe there as well. Then you can be on our mailing list, which in most cases are the shorts that we put out, letter from Canada, once or twice a month, sometimes more often. But at the moment, it's just usually it's a 1 minute compilation of what seems to have stuck in our craw that day.
So you can expect another one shortly, because I know this episode we're going to be dealing with a bit of a bugbear for you.
And
it's starting to become a bit of a bugbear for me as well. So yeah, that's
well. The bugbear is the love affair that seems to be flowering between the Canadian Liberal government and the WEF-driven EU leadership, and the various elements in the EU which are seemingly irresistible to our Ottawa leadership. And I think this is a really not only dumb idea on its face, but quite dangerous for Canada's sovereignty, for Canada's relationship with its only neighbor, particularly given the document that was released just today by the White House, which basically says America's biggest problem is not Asia or the Western Hemisphere, but it's Europe, which is declining rather rapidly on so many levels and becoming a grouping of states that are seemingly becoming ungovernable, and that's a danger to the security of the Western world, so to speak.
Well, I think this the little blurb that you forwarded me. We're in Canada. We're not doing well right now. Anyway, we're losing lots and lots of jobs. We're having companies pull out of here, and the U.S. in its blurb said that continental Europe has been losing its share of the global GDP, down from 25% in 1990 to 14% today. That's a huge decline, and I'm not sure why we would want to throw ourselves into that particular lifeboat. I mean, it's almost like okay, the Titanic's gone down, so we're safe. There's nothing can happen. But we've got to look at the boat name on the back of the lifeboat, and it says Titanic 2. So I'm not sure why we would want to be part of that organization, and considering that, I don't know, elbows up. I don't want to put another wedge into the political system here in Canada, but everybody got so upset and concerned when the United States had the audacities to suggest that we should become the 51st state. We're going to lose our identity. We're going to lose our sovereignty. We're going to be nothing more than just another star on a flag. And we're much more than that. But nobody is looking at this whole thing with the European Union, which basically you have to sell your first male-born child, write the contract in your blood, have it signed, sealed before a coven of witches on the wherever it is that the coven is. It does not make sense to want to go down that road and have basically whatever is called Canada now become a star on the European flag, or the EU flag, which isn't even a country.
No, but it masquerades as a hybrid country, but it's between a confederation and a union, which is something nobody really is able to pin down when it comes to the sovereignty of the countries involved, because there are certain national rights that are subsumed by Brussels if you become part of this group. Now, only one country since the EU came about has said, thank you very much, but we don't like this setup, and that was the UK 5 years ago, pulled the pin and left. Yeah. Now, there are elements within the Starmer government right now that are trying to come back into the EU, the back door through the customs union part of the European Union, which is essentially the foundation of the European Union, going back to, as I said earlier, 1955 and the Steel and Coal Agreement with the original six. So there's buyer's remorse in some cases within the WEF-driven Starmer crowd. Starmer himself was a proponent of staying in the EU when the whole Brexit issue was being discussed, and so now this backdoor approach. But who cares what the Brits do? That's up to them. But Canada has no business hitching its wagon in any way, shape, or form to the European Union. Our sovereignty is not for. We said this before. We're not for sale to the United States, but curiously we're for sale to Brussels. This is unconscionable. Don't talk to me about the evil United States and our neighbor and partner and peaceful one, I might add, for well over 100 years or so. Okay? Yet we suddenly want to give up all sorts of sovereignty to a bunch that's been at war in the last century twice, killing each other merrily, and now is gearing itself up to take on the same war that they did twice before with Russia. Like this obsession with Russia by Brussels and Berlin is reminiscent of the fat guy from France that found his enigmatic end on the plains of Russia back in the 1800s, and the guy with the mustache killed all those other people, from 39 to 45, and they just back at it again, but just using a different argument. Ukraine is
and
whose
a couple
interest?
Things of that.
Yes, sorry,
also, Tom, as you say, is they are very, very not even couching their words. They're just out and out direct words that they want to. What was it you said with the French president? We have to have a preemptive strike, nuclear strike on Moscow. Well, if you've ever watched the movie War Games, you know that would not end well. It's kind of like watching 4 movies of Jurassic Park and still wanting to clone dinosaurs. It's not going to end well. We have to sit back and look. As I said, this is a consortium. It's not even a country, as much as they would like to think that they're a country, because do they have a seat at the UN? If so, why? Like, I don't understand that.
Well, they don't have voting rights, but they're there. They're on the UN. They're in the UN as an observer or whatever.
And I guess that brings out why. I don't understand. And if you sit back and you think, not one of the EU executive are elected. No. Nobody in these 27 European countries has a vote to say whether this person should be president of the EU or not. They're appointed. And how they get that appointment? How do they, who says that thou shalt be? Is it like a conclave where the next pope comes about? I'm not sure. It's just it's almost like a secret society. And
yes, I think that's exactly right. And what triggers me when you say that is this is a secret deal, in many ways, that's being made with the Carney liberals in Brussels. This safe agreement, 500 million just pissed away over there to get involved with the European military industrial complex. Like, what are we talking about? What deal is it? When was this discussed in Parliament? When was this debated? When did anybody ask my MP to represent my views on this? It just happened. This is very typical of the grifter class in Brussels and the whole WEF Davos crowd that does stuff behind closed doors with their little banker crowd out of Zurich. And look, I'm sorry, I was very much a proponent of the EU in previous professional life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what word I'm looking for. Kind of lost here for a second, but in my time, I was very much a proponent of the EU, and it made sense then. Now, after thinking about and seeing what the EU has evolved over the past 25, 30 years, particularly after the wall came down, it's clear to me that it's lost its way. This is not the EU that I thought was a good idea and that I worked for whilst in Europe to bring about its expansion. It was never about turning it into a military alliance. It was never about censoring thought processes. It was never about putting one culture ahead of another. It was never about creating some sort of confederation or supranational country that nobody could figure out because it was odorless, tasteless. It was never the things that it was promoted as back in 2004 when I was involved in promoting this into Eastern Europe. Those things haven't happened. We have now a kind of a rogue international organization that does whatever it wants to, and if anybody in the club, say for the UK that figured this out 5 years ago, doesn't like it, they get crushed. Okay, and what's going on now with the EU that we seem to be having we don't, but there are elements within the elitist group in Ottawa that have literally a love affair with the Davos crowd and the WEF and the Brussels group, and without ever actually talking to us, they couch this in, we're diversifying our trade away from the United States. So you can see that the anti-American rhetoric and the anti-American stance and the anti-Trump and the TDS virus that's in these people. Wait a second, here's an idea. Let's use the European Union as an example of how we can jettison any relationship that we had with the U.S. Our new savior is going to be the EU. Those are our real friends. Washington's not our friend. Trump the enemy. Okay. Oh, I forgot. At the same time, we cozy up to the communists over in Beijing. That's okay too. So we're going to diversify. We love this EU stuff. We're going to, do all kinds of things to change our laws, to subvert our sovereignty. Yesterday or the day before, they were signing some other deal with Norway and who else to do something up in the Arctic. I looked at it and go, what do we talk? What do we got to do with Norway in our Arctic? Like, what is this? Now, yes, Norway's part of NATO, okay, but there's just a lot of stuff going on in the background nobody's asked us about. No one said to us, like everything else that seems to be happening, did they ever ask us, again, it's part of the melange here, no one's ever asked us whether we wanted the borders kicked wide open to 3-4 million people who just showed up in this country over the last couple of years. No one ever asked us whether we, as a community from coast to coast to coast, thought this was a good idea. Now no one's asking us whether or not this amorous political link-up with Brussels is a good idea. No one's ever asked us that. And you can see the bits and pieces. Some of them are laughable. The business of buying this stupid airplane from Sweden. What a joke. I'm not going to buy this thing. Okay? And the lie that it's going to create more jobs in Canada than they have actually building this airplane in Sweden. Who buys into that nonsense? 10,000 jobs. There's not 10,000 people in Sweden making this damn airplane. So, we're being conned. We're joining the Eurovision Song Contest. Like, what are you talking about? I'm sorry.
That's part of the problem. Part of the problem. It's just, like you said, the original concept of the EU, like all things, starts off as a good idea. And as it's implemented, it opens up the base level to bring in other crazy things. Warped ideas, warped spending plans, read criminal here. It becomes a law and answerable only to itself kind of situation. And kind of like we do now here in Canada with our Prime Minister, who has 103 admitted potential conflicts of interest with one particular company being prevalent.
Yes.
But that's okay, because now the ethics commissioner, who is appointed by the government, will tell us whether it's a conflict of interest or not. And we won't find out just how bad that becomes until the next change in government and the next regime change, or whatever you want to call it, when they start to dig out the papers and find out, ooh, we didn't know this, we didn't know that. And it's kind of like our former Prime Minister, who came into the office with $50 million in the bank and left with $350 million. His salary wasn't that big. There's no way that he could have had that much put into a savings account. It's just not. But we seem to be okay with that. And I guess what worries me is that you and I, and maybe a few other people, can start ranting about the idea of selling off our sovereignty is okay to do to Europe, but not to the United States, won't be listened to by the people in Canada, because they will be listening to what is being spewed forth by the bought-off media, who won't disagree with the government, and who, if they were asked about whether it was a good idea or not, would be saying something about, well, my wife's cousin's uncle's son's brother-in-law told me that it was a good idea, so it's got to be a good idea. And that's about the extent that people go here in Canada to look. we say that we're so different from Americans, but we're becoming more like them in many respects. Yes, we have 3 or 4 political parties that we can vote for, but the reality is that we're very, very much like the United States, where you either vote Republican or you vote Democrat. You don't look at things. You're a registered Democrat, so you vote Democrat. You're a registered Republican, you vote Republican. Here in Canada, well, we're the same thing. You tend to vote Liberal or NDP because that's the closest thing that you can come to think of as being middle of the road. And our Conservatives are, way out there, left of right of the right. I don't know. But the reality is that our Conservative Party is nowhere near what even the Republicans would be in the United States. My personal opinion. But I guess the other thing that raises that up too, Tom, is why have none of these, as you referred to them before, Chamberlain papers that Carney comes back after signing with the Philippines, with the European Union, with the Ukraine, and has anybody ever looked at them, had studied them? Has anybody ever taken them to task? Has they been mentioned at all on the Commons floor to say, wait a minute, why are you signing this? It's never been debated. We've never had this discussion. What gives you the authority to do this? And I'm disappointed that our official opposition hasn't taken that.
They've been silent.
But that's my rant.
Yeah.
But are we going to be forced into it because we're now part of this safe pact, whatever you want to call it? I once again, we're looking at, I'm sure the Liberal government would say, but we're going to get this, and we're going to get a whacking big bunch of jobs because we're going to get money for this defense contract and this and that. Well, like you said, we would be drinking Kool-Aid or smoking wacky tobacco if we think that we're going to get 10,000 jobs to build a Griffin airplane here.
It's clear to me that the statements being made by the proponents of this EU expansion into a more aggressive military bloc are really are losing their grip on reality, and that's why I think that there's this effort by people like this fellow in France, Macron. He's at the moment wandering around in China, telling everyone that and I quote, "Some want to move from a multilateral world to a multipolar one, where few powers structure the global order, while the rest become, so to speak, vassals and no longer work together. And I believe this is a fundamental mistake." Well, here's the reality. The fundamental mistake has been identified, and that is that there's only one true path to world peace, and that's through the current rules-based setup. Well, who made the rules? One little tiny cabal made the rules. And what's happening is that they haven't been paying attention over the changes in the world over the last, I would say, 30 years, and it was slow. They sold their souls to the Chinese 30 years ago because they thought, they'll make cheap shit for them, right? The Western powers of the rules-based order. But they didn't really count on those people over there who were working for 25 cents an hour to suddenly become a world power with a real economic power to do things their way. At the same time that the Europeans also decided they were going to hitch their wagon to the same rules-based order that they're in charge of via Davos, right? So then all of a sudden you got the Africans going, nah, we're not interested in this, have a nice day. You've got the clearly the link up between other groups, India, China, Russia, Brazil. Oh my goodness, what this comes out as BRICS. Well, wait, we can't do this. Yeah, well, that's the alternative. And they're saying, the world is made up of different spheres of influence, not just your sphere of influence. It's not just you deciding after Bretton Woods back in, the 50s, what money we can use globally to trade with each other. We all don't need to trade in U.S. dollars. All of a sudden, there's other currencies kind of like attached to gold that is just as valuable, if not more valuable than a piece of paper that says "In God We Trust" and therefore it's going to be okay. Now, the multipolar world is something these people are desperately afraid of, because that group is not going to play by the tunes that were created literally 80 years ago, and that served a small cadre of people very well, but they got greedy, and they sold their souls, as I said, to make more money. And now those people who are making just as much money are going, you know what, we like doing things differently. What do you think of that? Whoa, this is not good. So now this whole European Union thing is basically an effort to bring back some glory that they've lost. With this crazy supranational setup, which I always had trouble with this one particular part of the whole EU setup. If you have 27 countries in the EU that are supposedly sovereign, right? But you really have to do what one group says collectively out of Brussels, then you don't have sovereignty. So then I'm saying, what are you doing in the UN? You got 27 votes there that do exactly what they're told to do by a group of unelected elites in Brussels. So there's an inconsistency here that for the ordinary person, you don't have to be terribly tuned in to what does it mean to be a sovereign country or a citizen of a sovereign country when you are part of this very strange setup that steals your sovereignty, where everything has to be cookie cutter the same. I mean, in the EU, right down to parking permits for the handicapped in your car have to be identical in all 27 countries. I mean, these people are crazy when it comes to creating regulations. I would recommend anybody who wants to challenge me on that to go to Wikipedia and Google European Union, and you'll discover, the minutia to which the Brussels crowd imposes regulations and a cookie cutter approach to all 27 European Union countries. And you go, wow, we can't even do that in Canada. Imagine we're going to now hitch our wagon to those people. We're going to change our rules to accommodate the craziness that comes out of Brussels. And what's the motivation for this, Bob? Like, first of all, this came out of nowhere. A year ago, if someone would have brought this up, they would have said, Dunlop and Tass are crazy because this is never going to happen. Now, through the back door, it's happening.
At the risk of sounding like a TV nerd, there was a very, very good couple of seasons of a program where they introduced what is in essence the European Union, only they called them the Borg.
that was on Star Trek. You're right. Yes. Voyager.
Resistance is futile.
Well, it is at the moment not only perhaps futile for those already in the 27, because they managed to basically coalesce around the axis of Berlin and Paris. Whatever Berlin and Paris dream up, that's Macron and whoever the hell's in charge in Germany. I can't even think of the guy's name at the moment because he can't be all that influential, globally speaking. That it's the be all and end all for anybody who is living in these countries. Now, the ones that are balking at this, of course, are getting stick from Brussels. Italy, Spain, Portugal. Well, everybody had hopes for Italy, kind of giving some logic back to the bigger players. Well, it's not happening.
Not happening.
It's not happening. And like I said earlier, if the Starmer government is intent on going through the back door of the EU, well, okay. What does that mean? It means that there's conversations being held between the three stooges. That's the leaders of the UK, France, and Canada, because those three are thick as thieves. Okay, I mean, you just have to look at all the times they keep meeting each other, and there's the collective embrace, and every so often you have that Zelensky guy show up with his hand out, getting some more money from these jokers, but at the end of the day, it's very clear to me that there's a concerted effort here to try and do three things at once here. One, to disengage at all costs with Washington and see what happens. Okay, this is a real strange way. Two, use the EU as the excuse to Washington. We have other friends. We don't need you. And of course, my question then is, well, if we have a problem, what will the EU do for us? And no one seems to talk about that. And then the third one is that there's enough stupid Canadians who will buy into this crazy three-ring circus that they're creating here, with the faint hope that the saviors are there. And by the way, in the back pocket, we also have the Indians and the Chinese, who are pals of Canada, and nothing could be further from the truth, of course. So, this is one mixed up place that is where we call home.
Well, it's strange, and again, you go back to the goldfish study. I don't think that the average Canadian has maybe part of it has they're too busy trying to figure out where their next meal is coming from or how they're going to pay the rent or whatever it is, and they don't have the energy left over to look at these things, perhaps like we do, being retired, that we can have a chance to read news articles and form opinions. And I guess maybe that's what this current crowd that's supposedly governing us is counting on. We'll just flood the market with our own propaganda, and people will buy into it and believe it, and that'll be that, and we'll get our majority government, and then you can kiss whatever it is you think you've got in the way of freedom out the door, and
Well, 2/3 of Canadians, according to a survey taken just today, support sending troops to Europe if Poland, listen to this hypothetical, if Poland is invaded by Russia. This Leger poll says 2/3 of Canadians would send Canadian troops to Poland. Like, this is 1939 all over again. What is wrong with these people? It's just crazy. And, as you want to think that this is crazy talk, but, crazier things are happening in this country than anyone could imagine. Last week you had the Premier of Alberta completely bamboozled over this pipeline thing. There's never going to be a damn pipeline built, and if there was, why would you build one where you can't have a tanker to load up the pipeline? Okay? So, the crazy WEF anti-fossil fuel, no pipeline stuff continues on unabated.
Yeah.
And you basically have neutralized Alberta's premier on this thing, and the culprits are very clear. And by the way, how come the same people who were part of that neutralization process, which is your premier out there in BC, and ironically enough, even the Bloc Québécois went along with this nonsense. How come they're not questioning this EU stuff? They don't bring this up. These people are complete mutes when it comes to, what is the bigger geopolitical picture that this grifter crowd, this small cabal in the Liberal Party in Ottawa is cranking up. And by the way, as we said earlier, I put down in front of Pierre Poilievre, right down on his desk, why don't you open your mouth and ask these questions in question period, or in Parliament generally, or in some committee, because this is insidious. Okay, it's totally insidious, and if you don't say something, then you are just as culpable as the rats that are selling this country out to a bunch of grifters in Brussels. I'm sorry, and then you can basically, we may as well throw up our hands and say, well, if the 82nd Airborne gets pissed off and lands in Toronto at Pearson Airport, we did it to ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's just one other point on that whole matter. We're so bent and out of shape and concerned about having tankers on the west coast of the country here. But we're concerned about Canadian tankers.
There are no Canadian tankers.
Premier Christy Clark said, and she got maybe 5 minutes of airtime, and it's not been seen since. All you have to do is go 12.1 nautical miles off the coast, outside of the territorial limit. If it happens to be 200 kilometers and it's 200 kilometers plus 100 meters, whatever the distance is, you will find tankers running up and down the coast of Canada. But there's nothing we can do about it because they're not Canadian tankers. So why are we shooting ourselves in the foot? Why are we curtailing our I'm flabbergasted. It's stupidity in its finest form, I guess. I don't know. And yet, why is it that we can't have tankers running up and down the west coast, but it's okay on the east coast? Or through the Arctic Ocean, the north coast? Right? I mean, it seems to be, again, a very anti-Western kind of approach, and maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe Western Canada will tell the Ottawa-Laurentine crowd that it's time for them to move on and blow this out your ear. We're not part of it. And, eastern part of the current country can go and join the EU if we want, but the western part will either join the United States or they will become independent fiefdoms and market their skills and minerals and abilities to the rest of the world. And I don't know where that. What is the game plan? Being an ex-athlete, it's always nice to have some kind of a game plan. It was always nice when we were working to have some kind of a plan, some kind of an organization, goal directive that we were running to, but we seem to have movable goalposts in this particular country that nobody can tell you from one minute to the next what is important or what isn't important and where do we want to run. A few years ago, we were dead set against China because they had imprisoned the two Michaels. We were dead set against the Indian government for whatever reason, because of the Sikh terrorism issue, or I don't know. But now they're becoming our friends again. Are we that schizophrenic as a nation? I don't know.
Well, we've lost something as a nation. We've lost the core of what it is to be part of this country. It's not about patriotism. It's more than that. The soul of this country is sick, I guess. It's not. It's laboring under so many misapprehensions as an entity, and the grifter crowd that has been running this poor country for the last 10 years, they don't care. I mean, they're only interested in staying in power for the purpose of enriching themselves and their pals. Their ideologues, we know all this stuff about part of the WEF and the climate change stuff, and all that is true. But what happens is that the blame is put on others, where in fact the blame is on ourselves. Okay. Donald Trump did not ban Canadian products in the United States. Canada banned American products in Canada. Donald Trump did not bring in regulation after regulation that is shooting ourselves in the foot for productivity, for investment, etc. Canada did this all by itself. Okay? It's now become clear that actually the tariffs themselves have had very little impact on Canada in terms of employment or in productivity. Productivity wasn't there to begin with. Donald Trump didn't tell Algoma to lay 1,000 people off because someone wanted to sell electric blast furnaces that they made up a year ago as a part of a plan and got millions of dollars from the government to do under the so-called clean air, climate change, fossil fuel, anti-fossil. They wanted to get rid of the coal-fired blast furnaces. Well, that's what this was. This is a big lie about. Donald Trump didn't do that. Most of our problems are self-inflicted. Donald Trump didn't say you couldn't ship stuff from Saskatchewan to Nova Scotia. We do that all by ourselves. Okay, we're our own worst enemy when it comes to. The other thing that is, I'll just stop my rant here. There was something that just came across just before we went online today, that there's the American Chamber of Commerce is promoting that both Canada and the U.S. grow up, so to speak, and drop the whole tariff thing once and for all. Just go to a free trade agreement, period. And everybody seems to think that's a good idea, as do I. But there's one small problem with this that nobody wants to talk about, and that's the human part. Who's going to lose face on this? Do you think that Trump is going to back down and say, "Oh, I was wrong all this time"? This is no. Do you think Carney's going to back down after telling us for almost a year those evil Americans did this? None of them. This isn't going to happen. It'd be great. I would be dancing in the street if all of a sudden we got rid of this ridiculous notion that an economy and a social and cultural structure that worked well over 100 years, it can be put back where it was before, okay, and everybody will be happy again. I wish that were possible, but this bunch hasn't got the intestinal fortitude to do that because it would make them look bad. They will never ever not. The petulance of the president and the arrogance of the prime minister will not permit them to say, we played a game with, all the millions of Americans and Canadians on this thing. So we're, and if I'm wrong, then I will be, like I said, I'll dance in the streets. I will, right. But this isn't going to happen. Neither are these two characters and their peons behind them, who are doing very well. Thank you very much. Are going to back it off because can't. They're too deep into this craziness. And craziness continues. I mean, look at this week's stuff that came out from our friend Lubimov, who ranks some of the ridiculous, economic news that this week, giving $200 million worth of U.S. weapons to Ukraine. So we got $200 million. It's probably U.S. dollars, too, I suspect, if we're buying U.S. weapons for Ukraine. Then the other big lie is that there's 68,000 federal employees that will be given early retirement in 2029. Well, that's 4 years from now. Okay, this guy may not even be around 4 years from now. Okay, the CMHC cuts $2.4 billion from expenditures. Well, so much for building houses if you're going to cut that place down. And miraculously, the big banks made $2 billion more money in profits in the fourth quarter from the previous quarter. Well, the banks seem to be doing okay under the Carney regime. Let's see. Labor productivity, it went up just under 1% in the third quarter by 0.9%. Hoo-ha. 54,000 jobs were created in November, mostly part-time jobs. But, the Stats Canada report came out for November, and they were all dancing as if they'd won the lottery because, the actual number of people working went up. Yes, except guess what? Happens in December. Christmas. Yet, the retail sector actually shed 38,000 jobs. You don't want to talk about that. Okay, never mind the 1,000 people that are sent packing at Algoma or the mill out in your neck of the wood, the Crofton, the pulp mill that basically...
Small
it doesn't matter.
It's still 300
There's
people.
350 people.
Jobs.
That's right. Yeah. And you multiply that with this one and that one, and quickly the numbers start racking up. And so...
I guess the other one that we've kind of mentioned, but deserves further follow-up, maybe not by us, but... the plethora of recall petitions in Alberta, it smacks to me very, very much, not so much of are these people doing a bad job, which I think is the thrust of what recall petitions are for, but it's become a political tool. We don't like what you're doing, or you're not doing this right, or you can't do that, so we're going to recall you. It's like playground politics. But I guess the bottom line to that is where's all the money coming from for this? The old adage of follow the money should be a very, very basic review of any of these recall petitions. Okay, you want to file it? Great. You have to provide a bank showing all your support, where it's coming from, where's the money coming from, who's donating, why, and it has to be more than, well, she signed an agreement that we didn't like. Big deal. I mean, she's supposed to be there representing your interests, and if she thought at that point that it was going to be in your best interest to do this, then why are you taking it out on a recall petition? Food. I mean, the big thing that our opposition is focused on, rightly so, because there's so many people going to food banks. When it's purported, and I think that I read that this morning, that one of the Liberal ministers says, well, the Canadians should be happy that groceries cost so much, because the biggest proponent of this is beef. And we know that beef is done by cattle, and cattle produce methane, and methane is bad for the environment, so we're actually helping them because it's going to save the environment.
Yeah, well,
I don't vote. All they have to do is tell the people in Canada this €10 billion thing that we're buying into for the Defence Pact will get us into the EU, and then he can go and live in Portugal. And everybody's going to say, wow, I can go and live in Portugal. You can do that now. Yeah, okay, maybe you have to run through a bunch of hoops. But if that's the only reason you want to sell your soul to the devil, it doesn't bode well for the average Canadian, particularly when it comes to voting in governments.
Yeah, well, you're spot on, but we're living in, as the Chinese say, interesting times, and of course that's not a positive thing from that Chinese proverb. That's really quite black, as they say. But man, I don't know. Here we are, supposedly in the Christmas season, and we should be positive and whatever. And then we have reports that come down from one of the government departments that says that people work. This is a Canadian government department with 9,400 employees. that was telling the 9,400 employees that they should give up their coffee breaks because of Ramadan, and because the fasting of the 100 Muslim identified employees, 9,300 of them should give up their coffee breaks in respect of Ramadan. I'm thinking, this is not a normal society. Okay.
No.
And as someone said to me this morning when I was talking about this, said, well, do you think that the same report will be made by that particular government department about Lent coming up before Easter? Should that also be respected by the Muslims when the people who happen to be Christians and they have to give up something for Lent? What will they be asking the Muslims to give up? This is the lunacy of this country. This is so stupid that you would say, "Oh, you can't talk like that." This is a fact that when crazy stuff happens, you have to look at it and say, "Okay, now you either laugh it off and say, 'Come on,' or you look at it and say, this is an edict put out by a government department, dutifully serving the Canadian people at taxpayers' expense. Leadership, they're making up this crazy stuff. Now, you're going to irritate somebody somewhere for no reason at all. Why are you even doing this? Are you here to irritate 9,300 people who aren't Muslims in this particular department? Or are you virtue signaling to the 100 because you have some sort of reason to do that? And conversely, as I said, what are you going to do about Lent? Nothing. Okay, so this is something very wrong. And don't talk to me about, we have to have, be neutral and secular on religion. Then don't open your mouth on stuff like this. You can't be neutral and secular on religion if you keep picking out one particular religious entity and continually somehow or other give it special status against the atheist, the agnostic, or other religious groups. I mean, come on. So there's something very wrong with this whole thing, and you got to bring it up because this particular WEF crowd in Ottawa, and basically following the EU prescription. We come back to the EU. We circle back to the EU. The EU loves this kind of censorship. They love this kind of dictatorial approach. They like to do this in secret, in a cabal within, Brussels hierarchy. So you can see where the flavor of this comes from and is being strengthened with every passing day when you have lunatic talk about us joining the European Union. I, for one, have no interest in having anything to do legally, politically, or economically with the European Union. Thank you very much. I'm done with those people.
Well, and if I want to be part of the European Union, then I'll go and visit one of the consuls of the countries.
That's right. If you want to do it, you can move there.
If I want to go and visit them, I have to get we're getting to the point where it's not a visa, it's a travel authorization form, which is almost as invasive as what the U.S. is putting in for people coming to visit them, which we seem to have a big problem with. But if I want to go and spend some time on the Algarve, I'll put up with it. I just don't understand the Canadian psyche. I don't.
Well, look, there was a little bit of good news put up by Lubimov, and that was that murders in Canada decreased by 4% in 2024. So I don't know how they come up with that statistic of a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, but it went down 4%. Now, you and I still remember how during the Clinton years, the various statistics were changed by altering the universal criminal report that was filled out by people in the law enforcement community in the States. Because what they did was they changed the criteria for that particular statistic. And if you don't collect it, that doesn't exist. Or if you only collect it within a narrow band, murders were down by 60% in the category age 1 to 4. It's ridiculous.
Or you do like various governments have done is that you have statistics for product A, and it's not doing too well. So all of a sudden, product A now becomes Zulu Beta. So when somebody does a privacy request or wants to know the statistics about product A, you can say it's not a product. We don't know what you're talking about. We have nothing on that.
That's right.
But if you ask about Zeta Brava, we'd be able to give you all kinds of stats.
Then I have one more little tidbit that just came across, what you like to call the flyby news. Flyby news. CBC reports. Okay. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, in recognition of his exceptional and extraordinary actions to promote peace and unity around the world, Trump gets the first FIFA Peace Prize. Duh. So one of the wags writes here, well, what does Carney have to offer? The North American Security and Prosperity Peace Prize? Presented together with Scheinbaum? First of all, who cares whether FIFA gives a peace prize? I mean, what are you doing? What's that got to do with soccer, football, whatever you want to call it? That's just that. You talk about kissing the ring. That's an international organization that is kissing the ring there. There's no question of it. Very nice peace prize, but not from a soccer association. I mean, give me a break.
And good for them. I don't really care one way or the other what you do. It was kind of like when our former Prime Minister got an award issued in Chicago that nobody had ever heard of.
That's right. No, I mean, and that didn't even get a 72-hour mention. I would think that got about a 15-hour mention in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we tripped across that particular one, I remember. No, what organization gave him what?
It was so important that we can't even remember it. We remember the hilarity of it, but other than that...
Well, at the end of the day...
But I guess it just... to wrap this up, it just goes to show you that no organization, no entity is above politics anymore. It creeps its ugly head in, and in order to do things or to make things glide or grease the skids, whatever you want to call it, they come up with something to make things palatable, ease their was there some concern that FIFA may have had with the football games that were going to go on in America? I don't know. Who knows for sure?
Well, it's evident that from the live coverage of this whole FIFA thing in the United States that Donald Trump had no interest in chatting very much with the Prime Minister, or in fact the President of Mexico, on this whole business of the trade issues.
Well, you're right. Kuzma, NAFTA, whatever you remember it being called, I think is done. They're already putting out the little signals there that the president is open to canceling or to having Kuzma done.
Bob, we reported on this 6 months ago that the president said he has no interest in doing a trilateral agreement. He is into bilateralism. That's where, and in fact, back to the EU. They signed the agreement with the EU, but each one of those trade agreements through the customs machinery is with each individual country. Okay? France very much protects its agricultural policy, not only within the EU, but with the Americans, okay? Same with the whole business of the steel. They're very much protective of the steel tariffs. They're very much protected. Why aren't there any French cars in the United States? I'll tell you why. Because they're not interested in that. All right. So the deal of multilateralism that the EU espouses and try to deal with there is no. Each one of those deals. Yes, Trump signed a deal with Brussels and the Commission. But that doesn't mean that all 27 countries are onto it. They got to sign on, but that's never been ratified. So the BS about this continues. All right, and the same thing is was made very clear. We reported on it. We're not journalists. We're just reading what is said, either in the margins or openly at press conferences. The United States is not interested in negotiating trade on a multilateral basis. Okay, they were seriously talking about leaving the WTO. I mean, which I don't think would be a good idea, but still, I mean, you're looking at an approach which with Canada and Mexico are completely different. The issues between Washington and Mexico City and Washington and Ottawa is very different. And one of the things that the Americans did with the Mexicans, whether Sheinbaum or the Mexicans like it or not, is they sealed off the border. Period. Okay? So their big irritant has been fixed. Okay? And even the Democrats acknowledge, well, it's easier now. So what do you do next with the Mexicans? I don't know. I don't follow U.S.-Mexico trade that closely, but I expect that, they're probably under pressure to reshore some automotive plants from Mexico into the U.S. The only difference is the Mexicans work real cheap in comparison to the American under the UAW, so that'll be a little tougher. With the Canadians, we know what's happening. The GM plant is doing its downsizing and relocating. Chrysler, or Stellantis rather, has done what it has to do. Ford's already done those things in the last couple of years. The U.S. automobile manufacturing in Canada, which, by the way, radio silence on that, too, for the last month from our friends in Ottawa and Toronto, curiously. Those jobs disappeared. Yeah, okay, so what? And then you've got, all this talk about, well, we're going to sue Stellantis for the billions we gave them. But you never read the contract, apparently. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. This is what we get back from these geniuses in Ottawa. You'll never see that money from Stellantis. It's gone. Okay?
Yeah.
This is so stupid. We're like Hicks, real rubes here that have been taken by this guy from Stellantis. Sorry.
Yeah, well. We're slow learners in many respects on that, yeah.
Slow learners? It's worse than that. We're suckers for. And I haven't even gotten into the other case where we talked about earlier, with this business of the illegals not illegals, but the removal orders, with 10,000 removal orders that they can't find the people, and we're not allowed to identify them because removal orders against removable criminals can't be revealed to the public for the privacy of the criminals. Protecting the privacy of criminals. And I'm thinking, only in Canada is that a logical explanation for you can't find these people. And you won't remove these people.
Read into that, we have no interest in finding these people.
Well, that's probably the reality, my friend. We have no interest in finding these people. We've been dealing with that for decades.
In total government, doublespeak in 1984? Yeah, we've got these people, but we really don't want to find them, and in reality, they're probably self-deporting themselves anyway, so we don't have to look for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the improvement to the statistics, labor market statistics, are the removal of many thousands of temporary hospitality workers that basically disappeared. Well, I don't think they've gone back. I think they're somewhere else because the numbers don't prove that they've actually left the country. Oh, and we didn't even talk about the fact that Statistics Canada, or rather the census, has forgotten to actually report on literally millions of people that they couldn't actually report on in the last census. And you're going, no, not in a real country. Okay, this is all made up. No, it's true. They have literally not counted millions of people because they didn't
file census papers.
Yeah, and you're going, okay, well, this is so silly. It's not, So Can we take this bunch seriously? And do we think they really are going to be able to go toe to toe with the tough negotiators on whether it's trade or whether it's foreign affairs or whether it's culture? I mean, I don't know what. It's just very strange, to say the least.
Very.
Okay.
Very, very.
We have now
hit the hour.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, at the end of the day, to the EU, thank you very much, but no, thank you.
Yes. We didn't even take your offer on a free sample. We decided to decline it.
Yeah, okay, so we decline it. We respectfully decline your offer.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And if you agree with us, please repost this because we're just not. If we weren't ready to sell out to the U.S., we're not ready to sell out to the EU.
No, and to our Canadian listeners, if it's struck a chord or you want to find out what's really going on, talk to your MP.
Yes.
I don't care whether they're Green. I don't care if they're NDP. I don't care if they're Bloc. I don't care if they're Conservative. I don't care if they're Liberal.
Good point.
This has to be brought to the forefront.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, we need to raise this in the House. This cannot stand like this. This has got to be dealt with. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. And I hope that also brings to the fact that we can't have this one guy running around with his Chamberlain pen, signing Chamberlain documents, and nobody really knows what's going on. How many other secret agreements have we been entered into that we really don't know yet? Well,
yeah. You just triggered something in my mind when they were asked about how much does it cost to do this safe thing with the EU. The answer was we don't know. The details have to be worked out. Well, excuse me, what are you talking about? First of all, we've been told that they've already shipped $500 million to the SAFE program, but according to the Brits, who have no skin in the game, they refused to get involved in this deal because it would cost them north of $6 billion to be part of this thing. And they said, nah, we don't need this. Well, if it was going to cost the Brits $6 billion or more, how come we don't even know what this association...
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is ridiculous.
That's talking almost like real money with the pound and the euro as opposed to just the US dollar. So it's going to be even more for us.
Well, this is so shady and so evil. Sorry, I consider it evil. This is stuff of spy novels and mysteries. This is not how you run a country. Okay.
Anyway, yes, we're getting perhaps a bit repetitive on some of our arguments and discussions here. So
no more repetition. We're done with this EU subject.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless we forget about it and bring it up again.
That's right. Okay, Bob.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
You betcha. Have fun.
Oh, yeah.